I'm here today with Amber Hayes, and Amber is a director of sales at a company called Voices based in Toronto. And Amber, welcome. It's so great to meet you. And we met through a common male ally, Larry Long Jr. So shout out to Larry and glad to have you on the show today.
Big shout out to Larry Long Jr. I'm so happy to meet you, Lori, and I'm excited to be a part of your podcast.
Yeah, it's great. I'm curious because most of us, especially women, when we're growing up, we don't think about sales as a career. I don't know if you did, but I'd love to know what you thought you'd do when you grew up, especially when you were going to university.
Yeah, so I thought I wanted to work in law originally, all the way up until I had a placement through my college, Fanshawe College. And I remember sitting there, there is absolutely no room for error. There's no trying new things. Everything is so templated and standardized in law, up to the Latin words included in contracts. You really can't deviate. You can't try new things. It's very set in its way. So I quickly started to realize that wasn't the path for me. I wasn't succeeding. I don't fit into that neat of a box. I don't know that I ever will. So I went back to the drawing board and I went back to school for executive office administration because there was a public speaking course tied into it. There was a lot of Excel and basically like a lot of things you could just use in business no matter where you landed. And there was also an opportunity for a placement through that program. And through that program, I learned a lot and it opened up possibilities for me in any industry because you could be an executive assistant anywhere. So I wasn't really sure, to answer your question, what I really wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to keep moving and keep improving my skills until eventually I landed here at Voices. So I don't think I ever had something I truly, really wanted. I think I thought that was law and then was quickly slapped in the face by reality that it wasn't for me and just had to kind of pivot.
I think it's hard to expect young people to know what they want to do the rest of their lives. Most people don't. We all do career changes now, I think, these days. It's much more acceptable than I think picking a profession years ago. So I think that's great that you didn't really know exactly what you wanted to do, but you sound like it was practical. You took a practical approach to business in general, and you could have done lots of different things. But then what drew you to a sales role?
Yeah. So I don't know that it wasn't originally a sales role when I started at
Ah,
Voices. A girl I had gone to high school with that honestly I had lost touch with. I saw she had posted somewhere on social media about her job at Voices and what they did, and it was really exciting. And I reached out to her and I saw that they had a job opening for a project administrator at the time. It was a PA. And I asked her about the company and if she would refer me to the hiring manager in hopes of getting myself an interview. So I interviewed for the role. She got me in. Thank you, Ashley Kirby. And
yeah.
shout out to Ashley. Thank you so much for doing that for me. It's been 11 years. Thanks. It started with you. But yeah, no. So I ended up interviewing and I got the role as a project administrator, which in that role, we supported sales.
Ah,
So I got exposure to sales. Essentially, when a sales rep had sold a project to a client or a service to a client, I would be there to deliver. So I was delivering the deliverables that were promised in the contract and making sure everything went smooth. So it was really good exposure. I got to see how the sales reps were working. I got to see how they were earning. I got to see the excitement of the big sales and the celebration. And I had a really good team of sales account managers that were sending projects to me that would give me a little bit more exposure to the sales side because they could tell I was hungry for it. I had decided, I think a year or two into that role that I want to make it over on that side. It just felt more exciting to me at the time. So that was my exposure and kind of entry into sales.
interesting. So it wasn't the money. It was more like, this is super exciting. You like the idea of developing a relationship and bringing a deal to closure. Do you get a boost when that happens?
Yeah, I think I really like the chase is what I
Huh.
realized. It was cool to see people would put so much effort into one client or company and trying different things. They got to try it from different angles. Everyone had their own style. So I got exposure to a lot of different sales styles. And I just found that so exciting. And it seemed like it would be more fulfilling for me at the time.
Yeah, I was talking to a client earlier this morning. We were talking about reaching prospects and how hard it is in their sector in what they're doing. And I was saying it's all it is if you're calling on the right people and you have the right message for them. And then it's about how you deliver it and how often you deliver it. That's initially that's what it is. And so if you treat it like a puzzle and work to dissect it, usually if something is really tough, if other people are being successful, there's an answer. So I think that's an interesting way to go about it. You've been at Voices for 10 more than 10 years, and that's a long time, I think, for anyone in a company. How have you seen it? Now, you've been promoted a number of times, so that probably was really helpful, but what do you think about longevity at a company in a sales and sales leadership role?
Yeah, I have loved it, but I've loved it for a very specific reason. We're in a really fast paced industry and it's changing all the time. This company has had a refresh in our approach, I would say, every year to every other year. It's never been stagnant. When I signed on, what was important to me is that the leadership wanted us to continue to be like a head competitor in the industry. And to do that, you need to pivot. You need to try new things. You need to change things up. And you do tend to cycle through leadership because the company can outgrow you if it's growing at a fast pace. And I think people miss that a lot, but I got firsthand exposure to it. So I was seeing some of our leaders that were great where we were at. They were doing an amazing job. But for the next steps we needed to go to, they weren't elevating as quickly as the company maybe needed them to. So you saw people kind of cycle through leadership at this company as the company outgrew certain people in certain roles, or maybe people wanted to step away from where the company was going. It's a direction they weren't interested in. It's motivated me from the very beginning to continue to work on myself. Like one of the number one things I tell myself over and over again is do not let this company outgrow you. Do not let your skill set fall behind where they're going because we're always moving. And if you stop moving, the company is going to continue on and you're going to get left behind and you're no longer going to be a standout. You're not going to be up for that promotion. You're not going to be of as good of a service to the teammates that you're trying to lead. You're not going to be serving as an example. You're not going to be bringing new ideas to the table. So I've found being here for this amount of time has shown me through experience what can happen if you keep up. It's really motivating to continue to upskill yourself, to learn from new people, to get in touch with other people in the industry like yourself, to learn like what are you doing? How are you keeping up? Who do you know? Who have you spoken to? So if anything, I think it's really given me a competitive edge. Now I will say it gives you imposter syndrome because you're like, am I good at this because I've just been here for so long and I just know the product in and out? So to combat that, I feel like you need to go put yourself in uncomfortable situations. So I'll accept a speaking engagement. I just recently accepted one at the TAP Accelerator program through the Toronto World Trade Center. It was something new to me. I tried the Harvard Business Extension School program, digital marketing strategy to go meet a new group of peers and expose myself to new things. And I took the MBA Essentials program at LSE to just continue to expose myself in different ways and challenge myself in different ways to make sure I could still get a good grade or have an impact on my peers and classmates outside of this voices box that I've been in for 11 years.
That is a really great lesson for people, I think, because it's so easy to get wrapped up in a little cocoon of your own world. And I've talked to many people who, before now people, there's downsizing, at least in the US, that happens very randomly. And I think people are better now at working on professional development and investing in their skills. Because it used to be not too many years ago, I would say pre-pandemic, that people would stay at the same company for years and they would never build their network. Their LinkedIn was very limited. They didn't learn skills outside of what they were doing. And they were awakened to the idea that you're not going to always be at one place. You've been very fortunate that you have an environment that changes, which I think is really good. I once had 4 different managers in, I think, 3 years at one company, and it's like I learned all these different management styles without having to leave my role, so that
Yeah.
it could be a
You
good
learn
thing.
what you like and what you don't like in a very
Yeah,
short period of time. Yeah.
yeah, there's just like a revolving door for those folks, but so it's really interesting, but to challenge yourself to keep learning, I think is another really good lesson for people in sales and sales leadership because we're in a people business and we're in technology and things change all the time. And we need to deal with psychology and persuasion and tech and all these different things. And if you don't try to keep current or at least make an effort to learn and to grow, it is really easy to get stagnant, and nobody wants that person. They want people who are on the edge, learning and thirsting for more knowledge, I think. So good
Yeah,
for you for that. That's a really great key to your longevity, I think. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, and when you went from an individual contributor to a leader, what was that like? And was that your suggestion or was that somebody tapping you on the shoulder?
Yeah, I didn't get the tap, but I did get an opportunity, and there was a lot of failure before I got into my leadership position. I'm of the belief I don't know that anyone is really gonna give you a tap. You need to tap yourself, and I think women, a lot of times, they don't tap themselves. Like, they don't put themselves up to the challenge. They don't wanna inconvenience someone if they feel like they might not be qualified for the role, or they don't wanna raise their hand at the risk of embarrassing themselves, and
Uh,
I've embarrassed myself plenty. I applied for leadership
Let me
3 times before
stop
I
you
got
for
it.
a minute though. You said they don't want to inconvenience anyone. I'm just like
Mhm.
it just drives me crazy because that's true. And yet this is a business. If you can add value, it's upon you to say something, right?
Yes.
Like, Amber, I have an idea. And we've seen men do this quite often where they'll say, Amber, I want your role eventually. What do I need to know? And we've seen men do this in first 2 or 3 weeks of them being in the company. And so you're not inconvenient for the people listening. You're not inconveniencing anyone to want to expand your horizons, to talk about a potential promotion. Certainly, there's skills and aptitude that needs to be in place for that to happen. But please have those discussions.
I couldn't agree more. I just had an interview with a gentleman who said right in his first interview, he doesn't even work at this company yet, that I have my sights set on leadership someday. Will that be possible within this organization? And I applaud that. I think that's wonderful. And in our professional development meetings with our team members, we have professional development paths that we work and create with them to say, what do you want from your career? What exposure can I give you? Because you're either going to be successful and fulfilled here trying to get what you want. Maybe we won't have that role for you, but you are going to be such a good employee because you know we're invested in you for the time that you're here. And if you need a recommendation because that role is not going to be a possibility for you here, I will give that to you, but you still have to work towards it while doing your existing role, right? Yeah, I think that's a big thing for women. And recently it just happened to me with that TAP program, that speaking engagement I got. It was through a referral. Someone I know in my network recommended me, but they had originally been asked. And I felt this individual is way more qualified than me. And I was worried I maybe wouldn't be able to give the value that they were requiring from their speaker. And I brought it to my manager, my existing manager. And I said, I think I'm going to decline this because I don't feel like I'm ticking all the boxes there. And he said, just do it. Say yes, just do it. I think you could find a way to do this. You could speak to it from this angle or this angle. And lo and behold, I did it. I got the class survey feedback. I got 5 out of 5 on the value that my speech brought to that cohort of
Yeah.
students. And it was such a confidence builder for me. It was just like a click moment of, and I've been here 11 years and I'm still having click moments like that. Get out of your own way. That was good.
Yeah, and even when you mentioned about having some imposter syndrome because you've been there so long, and I think of people who are brand new who have imposter syndrome, it's so hard to get out of that. It's just a mindset shift, and it's really something that if you can get that stepped aside, we can try and fail, and failing is okay. It's not going to kill us and we're not going to let everybody down around us. And so I love when women will reach out and do things like that, stretch a little out of your comfort zone. So if you're listening to this episode and you're thinking about an opportunity, but you don't think you're quite there, you're not meeting 100 out of 100, but instead you have 90 out of 100. I think Amber would agree that we think you should go for it, right?
Apply anyways. Apply anyways and win them over with your personality. Honestly, so many people do that. I just interviewed another woman. Resume didn't match exactly what we were looking for and absolute standout in the interview process.
Yeah.
She went for it. And I think we should all do that.
Yeah. That's so awesome. That's great. So, what advice do you have for women that are maybe getting into a tech sales role? It's a kind of a male majority atmosphere still after all these years. Do you have any words of advice or suggestions other than go for it?
Yeah. I think my strong belief is honestly that a lot of the barriers are created in our mind. And I say that carefully, but I was listening to your previous podcast with Sam from Martech, and I echo what she said in that podcast, which was that she wasn't getting as many female candidates as she was getting male. So I think the issue with women trying to get into sales, or maybe how few women are trying to get into sales, is we're not pushing information like your podcast is about how lucrative it can be for them, how great of a career it is, how you can balance family and your career and you can progress, and there's no limit to where you can go. So I would say dive in with both feet, upskill yourself if you're looking to get into sales. And if you don't get a position, don't immediately assume it's because of the fact that you are a woman and you're in a male dominated industry. I think it's meet someone where they're at. So if you can't do the bro talk, I've heard people say this when they start, like, oh, I can't talk sports. I don't know how to connect with someone. So it's like, find a connection. That's your job in sales. Sports isn't the only connection. And you can box yourself out by saying, I don't speak that language. It doesn't matter if you speak that language. There's 100 languages you can speak with people to connect with them at that level. So part of your job, and if you're worth your weight in salt in sales, is you will figure out how to get to know that person and have that energy and synergy between them to work well together, be considered for the roles.
Yeah, sports is a funny one because I've met many women over the years that are just totally, it's 180 degrees. I don't like sport. I don't want to talk about sports. And And now we see more women that have done sports in college and high school, and women's sports is huge now. It's such a big deal, which I'm happy for. You don't have to like sports to talk about it either. One of our past folks on the podcast is Jen Mueller, and she's a sideline reporter for Major League Baseball and for the NFL, and she has a company called Talk Sporty to Me, and she will give people prompts every week, like what to say about after the Super Bowl. What's something you can say even if you didn't watch the game and you only saw the commercials, and things like that can be really helpful. But to just say sports and just turn away, I think it's a real mistake. It's such a big category, and women are watching more than there were more women watching the Super Bowl than men, more women at the Super Bowl, I believe. So the audience is huge. And again, you don't need to be an expert on any of those topics to be conversant and to learn some key things to talk about when you don't even know who won or who played. So there are
Yeah.
ways to do that.
Yeah, and then the best way to get around, I feel if someone asks you a follow-up question, I've played that game before where I've mentioned like a brief stat to try to
Yes.
connect with someone, but then they go all in and then I have to slowly back out of the oh, I got myself in a little too deep in the sports conversation. But it generally humor is a great icebreaker. So if you just call yourself out in that moment and be like, that's about as far as I go in
Yeah.
terms of the sports. I'd love to hear about X, Y, or Z. It's funny. But
But
yeah.
it shows effort. It shows
Yeah.
that. So I think that's really helpful. That's good to know. What do you read or what do you watch? Do you listen to podcasts? How do you do professional development now?
Yeah, so I have 2 young kids at home, and I work quite a bit. So when
Yeah.
I dive into professional development, it's normally I commit to a course or a program because I can go all in and I can commit my time to it and try to get the most out of it. Otherwise, in my spare time, I'm reading articles about our industry to be better equipped to speak about it, to really know what's going on. So we work with a lot of advertising agencies. So I'll read ad age articles, or I love keeping up on the news, what's going on with AI and what's going on with all those major players that might be impacting our workforce. But I would say for professional development, it's typically for me, I've found the best way to balance my life and my time, to have some time to enjoy and listen to things for entertainment over always professional development is I commit myself to a course. So I try to do 1 or 2 per year. And I find that the connections that I maintain, especially if it's like a live cohort, like you're meeting people in person or working with people online in different industries, I found that then I just continue to learn from what they've posted. So meeting you through Larry, who came to do a professional sales speaking engagement
Yeah.
at our company's customer operations summit, I started watching this podcast and keeping up with you because I was connected with you. So I find that a lot of my professional development is just following up on what people are posting from connections that I've made through different things I've tried to expose myself to. And there's no shortage of content.
Oh, that's great. So get out of your bubble a little bit. Widen your horizons by connecting to people that are you connected to someone and then see who they're connected to. I think that's really interesting. And
Yeah.
many of us don't do that. We have so many connections on LinkedIn that we don't talk to ever. So I always encourage people to spend an hour a week at least just looking at connections you have from the past and even scrolling through direct messages if you don't delete them. I don't. I have them from forever. And so I'll see an interesting comment and I'll run into this. I don't know if this has happened to you, where someone will send you a direct message in LinkedIn and you didn't see it somehow, or maybe you saw it and then it just got pushed under. And then I run into their name and I look them up and I see they sent me a message like a year ago and I never responded. I will respond and I'll say, I apologize that I either didn't see this or I saw it and didn't respond in time. It's nothing to feel embarrassed about because that's the way LinkedIn is. It's set up goofy that it shouldn't be that hard to find things. And so it's never too late. That's what I think with people. And some people be like, oh, I can't say anything now. They probably hate me because I never replied. People don't feel that way. And so just go
Wow.
ahead and apologize if you feel like it, or just say, gosh, I never saw this. I'd love to connect. I'd love to answer the question, whatever it is, if it's not too late. And
Yeah.
I built many relationships that way.
Oh, 100%. And getting out of your comfort zone on LinkedIn or even in you just made me think of something where you said they're gonna hate me or they're not gonna like that I asked this question. You touched something I had been thinking on when we were talking about advice for women in sales or people who are looking to get into sales in general. Again, like your almost like your anxiety and your toxic thought process can really get in the way of progression sometimes. So I was in a boardroom and I remember it was with this very accredited, like so many accolades you can't even count, impressive background CEO. And he was basically being briefed on this presentation in this like complicated looking Excel document and being run through everything. And I remember looking at the screen because I was part of the presentation thinking, I'm confused. Like the numbers that were being spoken, I couldn't follow the formula. And I myself was sitting there. I can't raise my hand, but I'm a stakeholder in this conversation. And if I don't understand it, that's going to be a problem. I'll just ask after. And this person who was, and by all accounts, I was like, I can't embarrass myself in front of them, raised their hand and said, I need you guys to stop and walk me through this like I'm two. I can't follow your slides. And it, again, like that click moment of this person was not afraid to ask and they've done X, Y, and Z. They weren't afraid to be embarrassed. They weren't afraid to look silly. They had absolutely no anxiety at all, which is something I can't relate to, but it really forced me in other conversations. If I was confused by something and it served me really well in my career, I ask. I'm no longer embarrassed to be the person that asks. And you'll find 9 times out of 10, if you are confused, other people in the room were too. And they were going to spend the next meeting or two trying to figure out what it was that was said, waste everyone's time. And they're generally grateful that someone raised their hand and asked. So that's part of being a leader as well as take the bullet for the rest of the team and ask. There's no harm in it. It'll get you further faster.
Yeah, that is a really great tip. I love that so much. So, final question, what do you love about the sales profession?
I love meeting new people and seeing how they work. I love in my role, I'm lucky that we work with people from just about every industry. So you get to meet people from all walks of life. And every time you meet someone, they influence you a little bit, like their personality, their style of speaking, what matters to them, what doesn't, their opinions. Like you carry it with you and you just become a more formidable person. I feel like the more connections that you make in life, you just have such better perspective because you've been exposed to so much more. So I would say that's my absolute favorite part of working in sales is it just never gets boring. There's never going to be an excess of people to meet in this world that are going to teach you something interesting.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I would add flexibility depending on your role. When you hit your numbers, people don't bother you. It's very black and white, right? If you do the work and if you excel, most people, I had managers that just left me alone and just let me do my thing because they knew I knew what to do. And that's not something you find in every role for sure. There's nobody breathing down your neck unless you're being micromanaged. And if you're in a sales role like that, talk to me because there are some really great companies. Sounds like Voices is one of them. Are you guys hiring? But it sounds like you're interviewing. Do you hire?
Yeah, so we're at the final round of interviews. We've just brought on, or we're bringing on, in the process of bringing on 2 new account managers and 1 new business development representative.
So can
Mhm.
people reach out and connect with you on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, they can.
Amber Hayes. That's great. Okay. Amber Hayes with Voices. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll keep an eye on your career and watch you keep rising and listen to some of the professional development that you're doing. I think that's a really wonderful aspect of what you're sharing. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.